Crank up the volume and get ready for real-world bird hunting by listening to the Wingmen podcast by Eastman's. Now your host, Todd Helms.
Hey, sports fans. Todd Helms here with another edition of the Wingmen podcast. And today, I'm going to visit with you. I have a feeling that a lot of people don't know the origin of Wingmen, how this thing got off the ground, so to speak. I mean, no pun intended there. I've got intern Luke with me here. That's going to be your name from here on out, even though you're not really going to be an intern much longer.
No.
Right?
No. It's got a ring to it.
I think it's got a ring to it. Intern Luke.
Yeah.
And he's not just the Wingman intern. He is Luke wears a lot of hats around the office here at Eastman's, as we all do. And that's going to just jump us right into talking about what Wingman is, who we are, where we came from. We are under the umbrella of Eastman's Publishing, which, if you don't know about Eastman's Publishing stems from Eastman's hunting journals, Eastman's bow hunting journals, Eastman's hunting TV on the Outdoor Channel. It's huge in the world of Western big game. The first of the Western big game magazine's publications. It's a 30-generation deal. Gordon Eastman started filming actually for Disney and all kinds of wildlife films. His old stuff, it's from the 50s and 60s is when he filmed. He was filming up in British Columbia. He actually explored some of the backcountry in British Columbia at the behest of their government, at the behest of the province, because they didn't know what hunting opportunities really were up there.
That's cool to look at all those cool videos of like guys. I mean, the old equipment, the 60-pound tripod that used to carry on. I'm like, wow.
Yeah, how would you like to do that?
No way.
On a turkey hunt.
No way.
Yeah, it is cool, and I don't want to get too far off in the weeds about big game. I just want to paint the picture of where Wingmen fits into this big kind of umbrella. The Eastman's brand is huge. From Gordon, it went on to his son, Mike, and Mike was a pioneer in the world of Western big game. He started the magazine. He started Eastman's Hunting Journals. And what we have is the MRS and all the iterations of that with Tag Hub now. That all stemmed from Mike. Mike kind of started with his top 10 spots in Wyoming. It's top 10 areas in Wyoming to shoot a trophy mule deer. And it's morphed into a lot more. And then he got his sons, Guy and Ike, involved. And Guy was kind of the brainchild behind the MRS. Mm-hmm. If I have my story correct anyway. Right. And then Guy and then they started the Bow Hunting Journal, which is the only Western big game bow hunting specific magazine out there.
Right.
And it's still hugely popular.
Yeah.
So there's this vast history, and in there fits the DVDs and the videos and the lecturing tours that Mike put on, and Guy going on lectures and being on TV for years and years and years. And I grew up watching the Eastmans. I grew up watching Gordon's movies, watching Mike, his videos, reading those books. I grew up as a kid in Michigan. That was like another world. But it was something that I was really, really interested in. But I grew up, we had a 2-week-long firearm deer season in Michigan. And it's like Christmas. Christmas come early. The whole state pretty much shuts down. I mean, it used to, it still does. But it's like a state holiday. A lot of the Midwest is like that. Mm-hmm. But that was it. It was all we had for big game. If you could draw a bear tag, you could hunt bears. But that was all there was for big game. So looking out west, man, you'd look at what the Eastmans were doing, and I get my grubby little mitts on Mike's publications and watch that stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating.
Yeah.
But what I grew up doing, what I cut my teeth on was bird hunting. And that was everything from upland birds, we had sharptail, we had ruffed grouse, and woodcock. We were too far north to have pheasants, but we would occasionally slip into the lower peninsula of Michigan and hunt pheasants. We had ducks and geese. I grew up in one of the premier duck and goose locations in the state of Michigan. I grew up on the far eastern end of the upper peninsula of Michigan, where everything kind of funnels down at the end of Lake Superior, and those birds come across, and it is a very, still to this day, it's a very good spot in that Mississippi Valley flyway. And it kind of spills over. It gets a little bit of the Atlantic flyway too. Mm-hmm. We got birds back there that I haven't seen since I left. Black ducks, for example. Even on the western side of the state of Michigan, pretty rare to see a black duck. On the eastern side, they were a little more common. That just happened to be where the split in the flyway was. I grew up cutting my teeth on bird hunting, with a shotgun in my hand, reading everything I could get my hands on, helping Dad raise and train the labs that we had growing up. We had a couple of pointing dogs growing up. We had, at one point, I think we had between the puppies in the kennel and the dogs in the yard, we had like 55-gallon barrels out there with a stake and a chain on them. It looked like sled dog stuff out of Alaska. The whole yard seemed like at one point it was full of dogs.
Sled dogs full of labs.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome. But that was, to me, wing shooting, ducks, geese, upland, turkeys, all of it became a passion, became an absolute passion. And it was something that I brought with me when I moved to Wyoming. I went through that period in my 20s where that was literally all I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. I was ate up. And I see these young guys now. I see the guys your age mm-hmm. that are ate up with it.
Yep.
And they're consumed, and everything's got to be extreme, and they're go balls to the wall all the time with it. I was that way.
Yeah. From this season, I could see why I'm like, oh yeah, it's shooting ducks, shooting waterfowl. What's the big deal? I get the big deal now. I totally get it.
I think a lot of big game guys, especially out west, let's face it, here in Wyoming, and especially in this corner of the state, we are blessed with some of the best big game hunting in the world.
Right.
People come from all over the world to hunt elk here in Park County, Wyoming. Mm-hmm. Rightly so. And I think some of the attitude surrounding waterfowl, especially, is it's just something to do when elk season's over. It's just something to do when big game season ends. Then I'll go chase some pheasants or chase ducks or geese, or the real dedicated guys are the guys that are out there running up and down the hills chasing chuckers. That's a game that I haven't introduced you to yet, and that is fun.
That would be fun.
It is. It's a workout in itself. They'll run you ragged. It's a lot of fun, but there is kind of that sense that I got when I moved to Wyoming that wing shooting took a back burner a little bit, which it's a shame, because Wyoming, everybody thinks of like Montana, Idaho as the states with phenomenal upland hunting,
the place
or wing shooting.
Right.
And it's not always the case. Wyoming's pretty good. I know I was blown away when I moved here at how much opportunity there really was. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you got to be around water, but anywhere there's a major river, there's ducks and geese.
Right.
Late
right.
November, December, January, and even into February, those goose seasons run. After a few years out here, I got right back into it, and I was going hard on waterfowl. But it was always, it was afterwards, and quite frankly, that's when our big game seasons end and wind down, is about November, and then waterfowl and upland really kind of picks up. Just our migrations don't come through for waterfowl; they don't start showing up really heavily until late October, November, and then they get really good the colder it gets into even January.
Yeah, when you guys did that hunt with the sick guys.
Right.
That was a cold hunt.
It was 20 degrees below zero on that hunt. Yeah. And the birds were moving hard that day. They were migrating that day, and we were trafficking birds as well as hunting birds on the X.
Right.
and it was pretty awesome. But I wanna take it back to we've given a little bit of background about Eastman's and what Eastman's is. The hunting journals, the TV shows, the forum. I mean, it is a massive, massive media company, basically. And I had the good fortune to come on board as a proofreader for the magazines while I was still a high school English teacher.
Right.
And I got to know the guys up here and the editor at the time pretty well. And we ended up doing the only time of year we could like hunt together and hang out would be during waterfowl season. And I am hopelessly addicted to it. I don't have the drive. Like I said, I go back to the young guys like your age, and man, I was there. Put myself in massive amounts of debt to buy decoys and trailers, and I look back and it's like, wow, that was dumb. But I'd probably do it all over again if I had the same opportunity.
Yep.
Because you'll only live life once.
Yeah, you don't get those experiences back.
No, and you're only in your 20s once.
Yeah.
You're only in your 30s once. You're only in your 40s once. Guys that are up in their 60s, 70s, and 80s are going, yeah, you're only in your 50s once too. And that's true.
Right.
That's true. Every stage of life is different. It brings its own highs and lows, if you will, its own ups and downs. But I remember being just tore up. I mean, eat, sleep, drink it. My brother was working like third shift. I was working on my master's degree, and we were living together to pool our resources. And we hunted ducks and geese almost every single day of the season, because we would have, between me driving to classes, I would scout the whole way there and the whole way back if it was light. We had like permission across like a 4-county area in western Michigan. It was crazy, and we killed mostly geese, but we had some phenomenal mallard spots too.
Just a big old playground, and you're just going out wherever,
just tearing it up.
Yeah,
just tearing it up, and we were paying attention. We spent a lot of time. You know, the old adage that it's time behind the windshield that kills ducks and geese. It really is. You have to scout to consistently kill birds. If you want to kill limits, if you want to be in that and doing that grind every single day, you've got to be scouting. Well, that was the beauty of living together and having flexible jobs and time. Is one of us was scouting every day. I would scout in the mornings, he would scout, and we'd always have a field to hunt every other day at least. And man, we had a whole crew of guys, a whole passel of guys, and just slaying birds. And it was, I remember about the time it started to come to a head, it was like, dude, we need to make this like what we do. Our lives took a different turn, and he moved away, and then I ended up moving to Wyoming, and here we are. Here it is 8 years later, and I'm hunting ducks one day here in Wyoming with the editor of the magazine. And we were walking up, we'd shot a limit of mallards and a couple of geese down on the river here. I'd actually come up to hunt with him. And we were just talking like you do at the end of a successful day. We're reliving the hunt. We're just like, man, this is so cool. And I had been thinking I bet you a couple years that the Western waterfowl market needed a voice. It needed some media. And this was at the time Instagram was like infant. I mean, I'm not even sure it was even a thing yet, but it was, if it was brand new. Mm-hmm. Obviously Facebook been around for a long time.
Right.
But YouTube was, people were starting to make the trend to YouTube, where that was where people went. It wasn't quite the biggest search engine yet, but it was close. And so it was right on that cusp. The timing was pretty good. And we were visiting and kind of laughing and reliving the day, and I looked at him and I said, man, how cool would it be to start like a Western waterfowler magazine? And my thought being, a magazine? like Eastman's hunting journals, Eastman's bow hunting journals. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, that's an idea that I think we should pitch. I didn't know the receptiveness of the Eastman family to this. I had no idea. I just had an idea. That's all it was. And lo and behold, a few weeks later, I'm having a discussion with the man, Ike Eastman.
Oh boy.
Yeah, right?
Talking about, I mean, big game family, talking about waterfowl.
I know.
Like
180, and you could have knocked me over with a feather. Haha, pun intended again, right? But that's literally what it was. And then it was kind of like, okay, this just got real. And we started brainstorming, and we had the idea that Wingmen needed to be the voice of the Western waterfowler. Now, since then, it's more broad than that. It's the voice. We cover much more media, and we realize that the Western waterfowling market's actually, it's pretty small. If you think about the Western states, comparatively to other flyways, we don't have the numbers of guys hunting that the Central Flyway has. I mean, we're in the Central Flyway, but we're way on the west side of the Central Flyway. When you think of the Central Flyway, you're thinking of states like, you're thinking of states like the east front of Colorado. You're thinking of Nebraska. You're thinking of some of those states over there, all the way down into Texas. Some of that type stuff. The Dakotas come to mind. That's Central Flyway. And we get out here and we're kind of on the fringe. We're on that far line, taking it all the way back to where I grew up in the UP, where I was on the line between the Atlantic Flyway and the Mississippi Valley Flyway. And now we're out here and I'm on the line between the Central Flyway and the Pacific Flyway.
Completely different.
Completely opposite ends of the spectrum, right? And different birds in a lot of areas. But the whole point of it was that we went from being the voice of the Western waterfowler to something more.
Yeah.
And
when did it morph into like the gear videos and like when did you want to take it to the next level? Like how long? I mean, from start to okay, we're pitching this to companies.
Right. Honestly, it was about a year after the whole idea kind of took flight that I had the opportunity to come up here full time and sit in the editor's desk for the hunting journals, the big game magazines. What that did is it allowed me to be in the office every single day, and it allowed me to kind of, this was my idea. Wingmen was my idea. It was my baby, but you don't know what you don't know, to quote Yogi Berra. I didn't know anything about how the social media side of this ran. I was a total noob, and Scott Reekers was actually the man that had kind of kept things afloat during a time of transition, and he was really good to me in the fact that he was pretty patient because I was a total noob when it came to Instagram and Facebook. I mean, you just because you interact with it personally on a personal level doesn't mean you know how to run an account.
Totally different. That's what I do every single day.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much in the past year and it's changing every single day. New things are coming out, new trends are coming out. And it's weird, and you're trying to morph that into the picture you're trying to put out to people, what Wingman is, and trying to do it the right way. And it is starting to get a little bit tricky, but you adapt and overcome.
No, I completely agree. And so here I sit 4 years later, and Wingmen is an entity. Now we're still pretty small, but we're growing. We've had continual growth in every quarter across every piece of media that we have, which is YouTube, which is a newsletter, which is Facebook, Instagram, and now this podcast. it's all growing. It's all trending upward. And that's due in large part to a shared vision in all of this. I came into this project with an idea and shared the idea, and other people took it, ran with it, molded it, and then I was able to jump back into kind of the driver's seat after they'd built the race car, kind of a deal, and really got lucky, and I'm able to take the experience that I gained through, man, I don't even want to know how many years it is. I'm 42, and I've been hunting ducks and geese since before I could legally hunt them. I was tagging along with my dad.
Right.
So, I mean, I've been in the duck and goose fields and marshes and woods and rivers for probably 30 years.
Do you remember when you shot your first duck?
I do remember when I shot my first duck, and we'll come back to that because I want to finish talking about this journey that is and what Wingmen is, because you asked a question about when we got into the gear reviews, and I want to get to that, answer that. It was when we started to really, I got here, and it became a shared vision. Okay, we're going to do this, and we started putting all the pieces together into a unified movement, basically. Then SHOT Show came. After that, we had a first season of, we were filming and we were all wearing different stuff, and we didn't have, I don't think we had any partners, any sponsors at that time. And that first year SHOT Show came, and I got a phone call, I got a text message from a couple of the guys that were like, dude, people want to talk about Wingmen. We had like a couple of videos up on YouTube. We had our newsletter had grown substantially, thanks in large part to some contributing guys like Wade Shoemaker, Brandon Trentham, Kyle Bennett, Brandon Maskew. Some guys had helped us out with some content pieces that really did well, that people wanted to read. And we had a name, and it was kind of like okay, now we got skin in the game, and we got to make this work. And so it's grown from there. And when you say gear reviews, we do gear reviews for obviously our partners, but if somebody wants a product reviewed, we do that, and we're good at it. I'm not going to beat around the bush or even try to be, I guess, beat your drum, but we're good at it.
We have amazing people that work here.
Absolutely, and that's what I was getting to. We have an amazing editing team, video editing team, and it's due in large part to the fact that we're under the Eastman's umbrella, right. So we have those resources.
Much thanks.
Exactly. And so our gear reviews are professional.
In the words of Brian Barney, next level.
Next level, in the words of Brian Barney, absolutely. Thank you, Brian. Appreciate that, Barrow. A little tip of the cap to you. Yeah, to this day, our biggest video on YouTube is our Sitka gear system. And it's got, I don't know, 40,000 views, close to 40,000 views or something like that.
Yeah, something crazy.
For a gear review is a lot.
Pretty good.
Is a lot. We have a video, the pheasant video that we did is almost 3 million views on Facebook.
That's nuts.
Right.
Not in a million years did I think that thing was going to blow up the way it did.
And it was not only the cool thing about that is that it was not only a fun project to shoot. We got kids involved. We told a cool story about the conservation piece side, about where pheasants come from. So I think a lot of people don't have any idea that that's not a native bird.
No, I had no idea.
You watch Disney movies and you think, oh, that bird's native. That bird's always been here since Bambi times.
Yeah.
No. Bullshit. It's not. That's not true. That bird's not from here. It's a Chinese chicken is what it is. I mean, I'm joking, obviously. Don't want anybody to get their feathers ruffled over that one. But the whole point behind it is, without going off and tooting the Wingmen horn, which I think you have to do. You have to be proud of what you do well. And you have to stand up for what it is that you believe in and what you do so people can take notice, especially when you're trying to grow. You need to say, hey, look at this. Look at what we can do. Mm-hmm. We started this thing with an idea. On the walk out to the back to the truck after a duck hunt, it was an idea. It's totally changed track. It's not a magazine. It probably will never be a magazine. It could be, because just about the time you think, okay, yeah, I've got this figured out, curveball, and you don't have anything figured out. And so it's back to the drawing board. That's what we've done time and again with Wingmen. And here we are sitting here doing a podcast. I never once in a million years envisioned sitting here doing a podcast, but here we are. So that's the story of Wingmen. That's how we got where we are. This taking it from a passion, a childhood passion, watching my dad and tagging along on bird hunts growing up, to sharing an idea with a coworker that led into an introduction, that led into a shared vision.
Pitching it to companies, and here we are. And not only are we, now we have, like I said, the newsletter, which is what drives this thing, and then YouTube channel, Facebook, all this, Instagram, and now this podcast. It's turning into something pretty special.
I never saw it.
It's like a mini big game Eastman's thing, and I think it was very important that I saw your vision and saw your passion. I think that's why he bought into it. Is he saw how important this was to you. So I think he took a big risk going from a big game family to having a wing shooting edition.
Talk about a complete 180 from the traditional direction of what the family business was. Big game is big game to this day. It's still the engine that pulls the whole train. But man, it's mind blowing to me, like you said, that he was willing to take a chance, take a gamble on something so different. But I think a lot of life in general is seeing opportunities for what they are and going, okay, I walked away from a decade-long teaching career. I am a vested teacher in the Wyoming Department of Education. I could go back to the classroom anytime, and who knows? You never know what life's how things are going to turn out. But man, I'm living my best one right now, and I'm loving it, and I'm going to stay right here,
right,
as long as I can. But I walked away from a very stable career, and one that not very many people walk away from, to come do this. And it was a big gamble.
You took a risk you took a risk coming here.
Right.
You had no idea this was going to pan out the way it did.
I took a risk coming to Wyoming.
Yeah.
I think back on that, and I remember I had friends when I told them we were on a turkey hunt, actually. And I had a very good friend. He and I were turkey hunting, and I told him my plan to move to Wyoming. And his first words to me were, well, you don't know anybody out there. And I thought, I don't need to know anybody. I'll get to know people. That's life. If all you did was hunt the same pond your whole life, you'd never see what goose hunting in a field was like. You'd never, if you hunted the same, and I'm not throwing people who pick a spot and that's their thing. That's fine. That's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. We have our go-to spots too. My point is that when you branch out, when you push yourself, you learn. You're pushed out of that comfort zone, and you have to learn how to be successful, or you fall flat. That can mean the difference between learning how to read birds, learning how to adapt to hunting scenarios so you go home with a limit instead of getting skunked. That could mean learning that, okay, the birds like this area of this body of water. Why do they like that? Because I really like to hunt off this point. Well, you can hunt where you want to hunt, or you can go where the birds are. And it's the same way with this project. I could have done what I thought was right and what I wanted to do, or I could go where the opportunity was.
Right. And we did that a lot this season. I mean, we e-scouted with Onyx and,
right.
Pick spots that, okay, birds will like that area. I mean, where else could they be? And we went down there, we saw, and we picked a spot, and it panned out really well.
That goose blind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a brand new piece of property. We'd never hunted it before, never been in there before. Like you said, we e-scouted it and figured out this looks like a pretty good spot. Walked down in there, and then we put boots on the ground, and what we were seeing with Onyx showed us this has potential. Exact same thing with Wingmen. We pitch it, you come up with an idea, you feel it through, you do the due diligence, perform the due diligence, the next thing you know, this has potential. And so if you're listening to this, I know it probably seems like, we're off in the weeds and whatever, but I wanted you to get a sense for what Wingmen is. I wanted you to get a sense of what we live for, what our passions are, and it is wing shooting and the world of wing shooting. I don't care if it's Canada's in the corn, beaver pond mallards, river bottom late season ducks like we have out here, pheasants, upland birds, chuckers, turkeys. Basically, if it's got wings and feathers, we're hunting it.
If it flies, it dies.
Yeah, absolutely. Get them close and shoot them in the face.
Shoot them in the face.
That's the motto, right? And that means dogs. That means shotguns. That means shooting sports. Anything that goes with wing shooting, with bird hunting. That's what we're all about. And that's what we're going to talk about on these podcasts. I'm going to bring you guests from as many different places as I possibly can. I'm going to bring you industry people. I'm going to bring you guides. I'd like to bring you in some writers. I'd like to bring in maybe some other media people and get all these different perspectives, because I know what it took to create this, and we're not where I want to be. We're just scratching the surface.
The sky's the limit.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm super stoked for where Wingmen is going to go. I'm stoked about this podcast. This is a fun thing that I'm enjoying already. And it's something that I'm stoked to have you along. I'm stoked to have Scott Riekers be part of it. Dan Picar. I'm stoked to have Brandon Mason. Ike is committed to it. We even got Guy Eastman in a goose blind last year.
That is unheard of. Now it's Mike Eastman. That's going to be pushing it good. It will happen.
That could be a stretch. But I did hear Mike say, I should have gone with you guys. One morning this year, we went down to the blind and we had a really good time. And I don't know what he had done, gone out looking to photograph. Mike's really into photography now.
Yeah.
And
takes really good pictures.
He does. He's got a gift. And I think he'd had a rough morning photographing or something. He was like, I should have gone down to the blind with you guys. But he said it, and I went, that's a foot in the door right there.
Should have been recording it, so.
I know, but I can't wait to bring out more content, to do more of these podcasts. I'm excited for this coming season to do some podcasts in the blind.
That'd be cool.
I mean, how many times did you get that where, and you saw it this was your first season. Guys, intern Luke is like, I'm not joking when I say he's an intern. We picked him up, green, freshy college kid.
I was sitting in my dorm room watching Eastman Hunting Journals, and I was like, wow, it'd be cool to work there. Where are they located? And I sent him an email and realized, oh, they're in Powell, Wyoming, right down the street from my dorm. Like, nuh-uh.
I remember I'd gotten a story of yours You'd shot a big bull elk.
Oh, in 2018.
In 2018, and we put you in the magazine. And then here's the same kid comes walking in.
Same punk kid.
I didn't say that. Same kid comes walking through the door with his hat in his hand looking for an intern's job. And what stood out stood out about you at that time and what we've all come to really appreciate is your passion and your drive. That, you can't replace that. You cannot replace passion. And so this was intern Luke's first season with a camera.
With a camera, yeah.
You had a camera in your hand, and that was your role. We took you. It's like
you don't know
all the other
cameramen
are out all over the place, and Wingmen. Guess what? We got to hunt. We need somebody to film this.
That's cool.
Take the intern. We're going to take an intern who has zero camera experience along on a hunt that is the hardest thing to film. Dan was talking about that in a previous episode, is how difficult filming waterfowl is. And you shined. You were capturing shots, you were getting angles, and I'm like,
was fun.
Man, this kid's got some moves. This is going to be cool. And then the morning slowed down. It was like, hey, give me that camera. Why don't you take the shotgun? And you got to pull the trigger a couple times. And I got to see something that I hadn't seen in a long time. And that was, it's one thing to take kids, and by kids I mean 10, 11, 12, barely legal hunting age kids into the field and get them their first bird, and it's almost like it overwhelms them, and they're stoked about it, and I love doing that. But it's totally different when you take an adult. And yeah, you're 20, 21.
Yeah. But
that's an adult.
Yeah.
You're a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For lack of a better term. We laugh, we jest, but you're grown. Mm-hmm. To see someone's first goose, first duck, who is an adult, coming at it with a completely different set of expectations and life experiences than a kid is super rewarding.
Yeah. And
I got to witness that with you. I hadn't seen that in quite a few years, and it was cool to watch you go from big game guy, typical Wyoming big game guy, where's my horses, where's my rifle, to
all right,
a shotgun, and you mean we can talk? We can laugh? Right. We can have a good time?
I can drink this coffee. I can bring a big thermos full of coffee. I can bring snacks.
Yeah, that's the beauty of waterfowl hunting, especially. Uplands, you got your stuff. It's a little bit more like big game in the fact that you're walking, you're covering ground, but
turkey hunting.
Yeah, turkey hunting is very much, and that was, I think you said that actually is, you got to go along on your first turkey hunt this year too, and actually killed a bird.
Yeah, first bird.
We have a webisode coming up.
It's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be epic. But you made that comment. You're like, dude, this is just like elk hunting, and I was like, shh, don't say that too loud. Don't say that too loud.
Don't tell Guy Eastman I said that.
Yeah, we're joking, but it's a lot like it. To get to see all of these experiences that you got to do for the first time this year, that's one more thing that is what we are all about here at Wingmen. Getting people involved in it. Recruitment is a large part of what we do. We've written articles. We've done videos. Without recruitment, hunting dies. And when hunting dies, conservation dies. And when conservation dies, the animals that we all love more than anything. I mean, if hunting ended tomorrow, it would suck. I would hate that. But if you could guarantee me that the animals that we love would be okay, I'd be like, okay. But we know that that's not the case.
Right.
So recruitment is huge. You are a part of that recruitment wave.
Yep.
Now we need more and more and more. And that's just another piece of what we're all about here. That was one of the things that I had a vision of. When I came up with this idea about Wingmen, it was a magazine, yes, it was media and videos and maybe TV and whatever, but it was telling the story of wing shooting, ducks, geese, upland birds, turkeys, shooting the sporting clays, trap, skeet, dog training, dog handling, dog everything.
Getting the perspective that other people don't see every day that is missed.
Bringing that all into a media platform, no matter what it would be, print, video, podcast, to get people hooked on what we love to do, because we need it. We need more of them. And I just hope that in the end, that's kind of the goal, is if we can grow hunting, if we can produce future hunters by what we're doing here at Wingmen, that's a win.
Absolutely.
That's a win. That's in our mission statement, is helping people become better hunters through education and through videos and tips and tactics and gear reviews, but it's also getting people hooked on the outdoors, getting people hooked on hunting. Yep. And I'm super excited to see where this thing goes.
Yeah. And you're the perfect guy for that. I've been big game hunting my entire life, and when Todd said, "Hey, you want to go try this out?" I'm like, "Okay." And I mean, the rest is history. I mean, I've had some amazing experience with Todd. He knows his stuff, and he has a passion for teaching new hunters, and it's been so fun to hunt with you this past year.
Well, I really appreciate that, man. That's nice of you to say. It's a passion. It's something that I live for, something that I love to do, and it's something that I literally wake up every single day and pinch myself that I get to do this job. Whether it's editing stuff for the magazine, but every time I jump into the Wingman, I put that Wingman hat on, and I jump in that Wingman seat, dude, that lights my fire. I love everything about that. And if you told me tomorrow that I could only hunt one thing for the rest of my life, it'd be birds.
I've actually that before, and I was kind of surprised, but I see why.
Yep. And I think there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, I love it, and it's who I am. It's been a part of who I am forever. But another part of it is you can do it anywhere. In all reality, to hunt elk, you need to live out west.
Right.
Unless you're planning on traveling and drawing tags and all that. But if you want to hunt elk every year with no qualms about it, you probably ought to move out west if that's what your thing is. Mule deer, antelope, whatever that is, big game, you got to pretty much, unless you're wealthy, you got to pretty much live where those animals live. With birds, man, they're everywhere. You go down south, they got ducks and geese.
There's no such thing as drawing. There's no such thing.
There is. We can get into that.
Okay, maybe I didn't know that.
There's tags you have to draw. I'm thinking like swan tags.
Oh, okay.
You got to draw. So
okay.
That's a bucket list bird, and I will draw that tag someday, and I'm going to go shoot a swan. There's back in Michigan, we had refuges that we could hunt. You had to show up early to get a draw. And if you drew that, whatever number you drew, you got assigned to that blind. That was where you had to hunt that day. If you didn't draw, then you could hunt the open areas, and that was a whole other ball of wax, and it was a circus. We're blessed out here because we don't have the level of competition that guys in like Arkansas hunting public ground have. I mean, you want to see some crazy videos, you just go on Sitka's website or on YouTube and fire up public land Arkansas duck hunting opening day, and it's a NASCAR race with boats.
Wow.
It's insane.
That's cool.
It's insane. We don't understand that.
Totally
different.
Totally different.
That's the coolest part of wing shooting, is there's so many different worlds to it. Even all the way overseas, we could get into driven pheasants and grouse in England on the moors. Dude, everywhere you go, there's bird hunting. It's not quite that way with big game. You know, I go back and I think about the Midwest. Yeah, they got awesome whitetails. That's it.
Yeah.
That's what there is for big game. Now, if that's your thing, cool. Good for you.
You're in the right place.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My brother is tore up with whitetails.
Dude's killed some monster whitetails.
He has. That's his thing. That's what he lives for. And he lives in Iowa.
Right place.
He's in the right place. That's where he belongs. Anyway, this is kind of probably sounding like it's rambling, but the whole point of this whole podcast was just sit down and talk about, and I'm glad you sat down with me because it's easier to talk to someone than just talk.
Yeah.
But I wanted to talk about where Wingmen came from. I wanted to talk about the vision behind it, the goals we have for it. We want to be the resource for wing shooting before it's all said and done. And I honestly think we have that ability. I'm super stoked for where this thing has come. We looked at growth numbers today on social media, and it's
killing it.
It's killing it. It's killing it. Now, we don't have the biggest followings yet, but it's getting there. And I'm really excited about that. I'm excited for this podcast. This is something completely new for me. I am literally a digital caveman. I know I'm not a technological guy at all. And to pull this off, we had to bring in producer Lindsay and intern Luke to get this thing off the ground. No pun intended. Again, he's full of them.
Good.
But because I'm such a moron when it comes to technology, but I can talk. So
me too.
I guess we're there. But I thank you for joining us on this episode of the Wingmen podcast, and I'm excited to bring you a lot more. Stay tuned. I've had a lot of interest in this podcast already, and I've got a lot of great guests on the hook that are going to be coming through here in the weeks and months to come. I think this is going to be awesome. I think this will be huge. I'm stoked for this journey. And until next time, guys, get them close and shoot them in the face.
Shoot them in the face. Thanks, guys.